Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, a place for men to be men and talk about masculinity and men's issues and rights. And in spite of the fact that men, do have some rights and should have more, should have equal rights to women, we don't. And so today in this video, I'm going to be discussing the legal biases in the judicial system that favor women and are against men, because the legal system is radically biased towards women. In any case in which the police are called during a dispute between a man and woman, the woman will usually find a way to play the victim and turn the tables on the man, and the police will almost always side with the woman anyway, no matter what the case, and be against the man, even if he was the one calling them on her. In fact, much of this is what you would call systemic sexism. The Black Lives Matter movement calls it systemic racism, how racial profiling is basically embedded into police training, so it becomes a systemic issue. Well, the same thing happens with the sexism that we men experience in situations with women where the police get called. The police are trained to protect the woman from the man first and to basically be on her side by default. And so this is what we would call systemic sexism. If we were to be, given the same rights as, the black people in the Black Lives Matter movement are talking about, needing to be able to have. And it's interesting that this has never been talked about from the point of view of sexism, and that to me is an equal issue to the racism issue. There should be no profiling whatsoever. There should be no bias whatsoever. The police shouldn't be trained to take anyone's side in a dispute unless that person has demonstrated that they are in fact the victim who needs protecting, right? If it is the person who called because someone is doing something to them, then yeah, the police should take their side no matter what race or gender they are. That makes sense, right? Wouldn't that be the way it should be if this were in fact an egalitarian system in which, all of our civil rights were all equal no matter what demographic we were in? But it is simply not the case. Police are biased towards white women and against men, and especially men of color. And police will almost never press charges on a woman on behalf of a man, even if she had done something obviously violent and illegal to him. But if a man and a woman do end up in court together in any court case, the courts will usually side with the woman. In family court, the rate of this happening is almost 100% of the time. Even when a female is charged with and convicted of a crime, she will generally be shown great leniency and not given the same punishment that men get for the same crime, or may avoid jail time altogether and get off completely. Even for the worst crimes, such as the rape of a child, women will not usually get off with much more than a slap on the wrist, but they'll be barely treated as a criminal at all, and the crime will be spoken of as if it wasn't really a crime. Whenever a female rapes a male child, it's not even called rape or sexual assault. She's not called a pedophile or a sexual predator as a man would be, right? But what the female is called is having had sex with a minor, or having sexual relations, or worse yet, I've seen multiple instances of them calling it a sexual relationship. So women are able to manipulate the legal system in order to get away with criminal acts. And this is not just rhetoric. Again, I am here to prove this case. So I have cited some sources for you in the description below that you can now go over with me. This first one here is from ScienceDaily.com and is a study from the University of Illinois that shows that judges are as susceptible to gender bias as lay people, and sometimes even more so. Judges who are supposed to be educated and trained to be highly objective, that's why they're called honorable judges and given this position, right? They're supposed to be in a higher standpoint of objectivity than the other people in the situation, and are supposed to be able to consider the law and fine points that other people aren't able to consider. But it turns out that oftentimes what is really just happening is they are allowing unconscious biases, sexist biases against men and towards women, and other preferences and opinions to influence how they judge these situations. And they're affecting people's lives, people's livelihoods, and it's just not the way that it is supposed to be. They are supposed to be objective, but they aren't. They are biased as anyone else, sometimes even more so. How shocking. But let's take a look at the next link, where a page called Skeptics has analyzed the question, is the judicial system biased against men? So here we have more evidence of this that you can look through. This is basically a page where different experts are able to, make these cases by providing, studies and statistics and data. So there's a table that you can look at here on this page that someone provided that shows the differences in sentence length based on different demographics to show that there's obvious biases there that are happening. And there's some other information on that page, but let's move on to the next citation, which is from the Good Men Project, which talks about the sentencing gap more and how men are more likely to go to prison at all than women. And this one goes over a lot of statistics and information here as well. And then the next source from the Huffington Post goes over the issue of men getting sentenced to longer prison terms than women for the same crimes, which it has a study to go over that shows that. And it's interesting. This is something I brought up in a previous video called The Many Disadvantages of Being a Man. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend watching it. And one of the disadvantages was this, and I cited an instance where a male and female couple who had committed a crime together got 2 different sentences for committing the same exact crime together as partners. So that is an obvious issue, and it's great to see a study being done on this. But that's not all. Lastly, I have 5 different links for you of news sources exposing instances in which female teachers have raped their young male students who were underage, and which technically makes it not just rape, but pedophilia, and makes these teachers sexual predators. However, these news stories don't call it any of those things. They don't call it rape or pedophilia or even sexual assault, or that the teachers are sexual predators. I mean, just look at all of these stories of multiple different cases of these female sexual predators preying on young boys and not getting called out for it, not even getting called what it is by the news. And of course, they get off with a much lesser sentence than male sexual predators get, which is very harsh. And not only do they get sent to maximum security jails for a long time, but then they get raped in them. And so the consequences that these female predators get is very minor in comparison. So you have all the proof you need right here. There are obvious biases towards women and against men in the legal and justice system because we live in a matriarchy. And so the case is closed on that issue on the legal side, and that concludes this talk. Thank you for listening. Be sure to share your own thoughts and opinions by commenting below in any ways that the legal system has seemed unfair or unjust to you as a man, any bad experiences you have had with it, and any women you've been involved with. Please share those below as well. And if you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button and share these messages with everyone by sharing the video on social media and talking about these things too. And lastly, check out the links in the description below for other resources for your masculine personal development and living the life you want as an independent man. And stay tuned for the next video coming out soon, which will be on how marriage is an institution of financial exploitation of men for female benefit. And make sure you subscribe so you'll be notified when that is. And until then, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.